What's going on, guys? Welcome back to United View. Hope everyone is doing very well. Welcome back to another press conference reaction. Yes, it is Crystal Palace versus Manchester United in the Premier League. Not tomorrow, not Saturday, not Sunday, but Monday, bank holiday Monday here in the UK, here in England. And it's going to be under the lights at Selhurst Park, 8 o'clock kickoff. And Erik ten Hag today has been talking to the assembled media at Carrington ahead of Manchester United's trip there in the Premier League on Monday. And Ten Hag's hit back, he's hit out, and he's right to. He really is right to, about the coverage of Manchester United's transfer windows, about links to players and squad overhauls and this, that and the other. He's hit back at that, basically been like, it's just ridiculous. It is a joke. So we're going to be chatting about all of that. He's spoken about team news, more injuries, more doubts, people coming back, people being out. Spoken about Jadon Sancho, of course, after his performance for Borussia Dortmund yesterday, which we spoke about in depth this morning. But Ten Hag, as you would be expected, got asked about it in the press conference, so he's spoken about that. He's spoken about Jason Wilcox, now that the technical director is through the door at Manchester United, meetings with him and putting plans together and putting strategies together as well. He's also talked about how Manchester United, of course, were not going to be in the Champions League next season. Mathematically impossible to finish in the top four last weekend. And then now, the fifth spot's gone to other countries, so it's completely, totally ruled out. Manchester United will not be in the Champions League next season. So what does that mean when it comes to Europa League football, when it comes to attracting players, when it comes to budgets and things like that? He's spoken about that, and also an update on Marcus Rashford as he recovers from an injury he picked up against Coventry as well. So there's so much to get into. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right hand corner. What are people saying here in the chat? Simon says, big up UV fan. Big up to you, Simon. Appreciate you tuning in. Long time viewer. Javid says, good afternoon. Owen Courtstar says, big up Owen and the UV fam. Travash says, so many bank holidays. We do have quite a few over here in the UK. We've got, obviously, the May bank holiday is this coming Monday. What other ones have we got coming up soon? Isn't there like a summer bank holiday? Or am I getting that mistaken? I don't know. There's no such thing in this game. But yes, so there's plenty to get into. So be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right hand corner. How are you all feeling? You're feeling good though? Again, the weather's very nice where I am today. Very nice, very warm, very sunny, and perfect press conference weather, they would say. Perfect press conference weather, yes. So let's get straight into it, because there's quite a lot of team news about this trip to Selhurst Park, trip to the capital on Monday. So when asked about people that were going to be available or not available for the game, Erik ten Hag said, quote, Scott, that being McTominay, didn't train so far this week, but I expect him back in training on Saturday, and we'll have to see if he's 100% available or for a part of the game. After the game against Burnley, we had an issue with Bruno. He is a doubt for Monday. We all know Bruno. Never rule him out of any game. He will do his best to be available. Johnny Evans, he didn't say it in that accent, but Johnny Evans returned today for team training. Tomorrow we are off, then 2 days until the game. And Anthony Martial, yes, Anthony Martial was partly in team training. That was a report that came out earlier today, that Johnny Evans and Anthony Martial, they were both back in team training. Interestingly, I don't know if you guys saw this or not, but there was a clip, I think it was from Sky Sports News. Was it yesterday? I think it was yesterday. And they reported that Marcus Rashford and Lisandro Martinez were back in training, and then very quickly got deleted because it was old footage, and clearly they're not back in training. So I have no idea where that report came from yesterday, but Rashford, no, not in training, and Martinez, we didn't really hear anything. So I guess we'll have to wait and see if anything else is said about him, maybe in the embargoed part of the press conference, which of course we'll cover on Monday in the pre-match of the Match View Live. But if we go through those names bit by bit, McTominay, wow, it's a really interesting one with him, isn't it? Because he had the knee thing that he did against Chelsea, and he was out for a little bit, and then he came back. And then the concern against Burnley was that he looked to be in quite a bit of pain, quite a bit of discomfort. And regardless of what you think about McTominay, whether you think he's good enough for Manchester United or this, that and the other, whether we should get rid of him, whether he's a good squad player, you felt for him in the sense of, the European Championships are coming up, and we're at that stage of the season now, aren't we, whereby if you pick up an injury chances are, not 100%, but chances are you're going to be missing out, or you could be missing out, or at least the very least going into a major international tournament, being not 100%. So you kind of worried for him for that. Then he came out, of course, on social media and said, I was concerned, I was worried, but thankfully it's not too bad. It's not as bad as I thought it was. So he's expected back out on the grass on Saturday. Whether or not he'll play, I think he'll be in the squad. You know, McTominay is one of those people, isn't he, that if he can make himself available for the game, then he'll do it. So I think that McTominay might be on the bench possibly for the game on Monday. The Bruno one, it's Bruno Fernandes, isn't it? Bruno Fernandes not only will play, he will play 90 minutes. He will play the full game at Selhurst Park. Bruno just doesn't miss games. So even I don't know what this issue is. They didn't really expand upon it. I don't know if it's a continuation of, his hand. Of course, he's got a broken hand that he did against Coventry. He's played the last 2 games and scored goals and played pretty well in those games. I don't know if it's something separate. We have to wait and see. But let's be honest. And once again, regardless of what your opinion is on Bruno Fernandes, if he can make himself available for the game, he will make himself available for the game. He will not be missing out unless it's something so bad that he can't walk or something. So, as Ten Hag says, we all know Bruno. You can never rule him out of the game. Time will only tell. I wouldn't even be shocked if we see some pictures like we did before of him on social media laid up with all of this, apparatus surrounding him and whatever ailment he has, and next thing you know, he's leading Manchester United out at Selhurst Park on Monday. So I wouldn't be shocked with that one. Johnny Evans, I mean, you would have thought, at the beginning of the season, you wouldn't be saying this, but my goodness me, do we need Johnny Evans back? Because we need another centre back. We've only got Harry Maguire. Casemiro's been the person who's been playing alongside him recently. Doesn't look like we have an update on Raphael Varane, apart from, again, Ten Hag had hoped that these players were going to be back before the end of the season. So Varane wasn't mentioned. Lindelof wasn't mentioned. We're kind of we're struggling for centre-backs to be available. So Johnny Evans and Martinez, of course, as mentioned, wasn't mentioned either, seemingly. We know they're coming back. We just don't know when. So Johnny Evans being back in training is very important, because having Johnny Evans, having 2 proper centre-backs will be very important. So we shall see if he's going to be available as well. But whenever Johnny Evans has played this season, he's done well. That's why I'm an advocate of, if he wanted to stick around for another year, give him another contract, give him another year. I think eventually he's going to transition into being part of the coaching staff. I don't know if that's going to be at senior level or academy level or what have you. But if he wants to stick around for another year and play, give him another deal. I mean, and actually have the role that he was meant to have last season, which is he plays maybe a handful of games in the season. The guy's been starting this season in Manchester derbies and games against Liverpool. That's crazy. Before the start of the season, you would have said that's nuts. That kind of encapsulates the injury issues that Manchester United have had. So Johnny Evans being back today, we shall see if he's going to be available for Monday. As Ten Hag says, they've got a couple of got a day off, or at least a couple of days off, a couple of days between now and the game on Monday. As far as Martial, I'd be stunned if Martial started, to be honest. Maybe he might make the bench, maybe, but he's been out since, January at this point for that. He had surgery on his groin, didn't he? And look, Manchester United, I suppose now, in the past, the worry would be if they had intentions of selling him in the summer, you'd be like, look, we don't want to rush him back because we don't want him to get injured because we might not be able to sell him again. We know he's leaving in the summer regardless because his contract is coming up. So I suppose it's just a case of Martial. What does he want to do? Does Martial want to get fit and get some games in and kind of prove to people heading into the summer, because he's going to have to find a new club? It would probably be within his best interest, wouldn't it, to play a couple of games to remind everyone, or show everyone, no, I'm fit now, I can play, I'm ready, and then some club can pick him up in the summer. I don't know, but he may be on the bench, but they've said partly as well. So Martial, he's not going to start, and he may or may not be on the bench, but we shall see. But if we can get to the point, even if it was for the FA Cup final, if we could have a situation where we had Rasmus Højlund starting and Martial on the bench just as an option for that last game. Everything's focused on that last game, isn't it? And then he can ride off into the sunset and see what happens with him in the summer and which club can pick him up, because certainly he's going to be leaving Manchester United, isn't he? So that's the latest when it comes to team news as well. The next question, you would have expected, you guessed it, we spoke about it this morning. Jadon Sancho. Of course, Jadon Sancho was going to get brought up after his performance last night for Borussia Dortmund against Paris Saint-Germain in the first leg of their Champions League semi-final in Germany. And Ten Hag was asked about the performance, and Ten Hag said, so let's say this. Yesterday he played very good, and he's a very good player. Yesterday he showed why Manchester United bought him, and he showed he represents a high value for Manchester United, which is good. I'm happy for Jadon for the performance yesterday, and we'll see what is going to happen in the future. Now, I already saw some people with that last line go, does this mean the door's open for a Jadon Sancho return to Manchester United? The answer is no, isn't it? Clearly, if Erik ten Hag is still there. I mean, you never know. Maybe they can put water under the bridge. Bygones be bygones. They apologise to each other and they move on. But it just feels like so much has happened since then. And Jadon Sancho's happy where he is. And, I think it's quite transparent, really, what he's saying as well, isn't he? Where he's going, he represents a high value for Manchester United. He's kind of shown his cards there. Like I spoke about this morning, Jadon Sancho's never been a rubbish player. Jadon Sancho's never been shit, has he? Man United bought him for a reason. He was worth a lot of money for a reason. He was a sought-after player for a reason, because he's a good player. It hasn't worked out at Manchester United for whatever reason. You can point to all of the different reasons I pointed to this morning, whether it's the environment at Manchester United not being, having the circumstances for him to succeed, whether it's being at Dortmund, being sort of a bigger fish in a smaller pond, whether it's a system situation where he has to do less defensive work, he's got more freedom, whether it's working with a coach that he's got a good relationship with and he's had success with in the past, whether it's off the field stuff that has been reported, which some say is true, some say it's not. But it hasn't worked out under any manager at Manchester United, has it? He played last night better than he's played throughout his entire time at Manchester United. And I think that's a good thing, because it brought his value up. We spoke in January. There's a reason Manchester United didn't put an optional fee on, or a mandatory fee on the Jadon Sancho deal in January. Is because they hoped that this situation would happen, that he would go there, that he would play well, that his value would be raised, and they'd give themselves position to be able to negotiate at the summer and get a good price for him, get a good value for him, and that's going to be the case, I think. So, yeah, he's in the best place for him to succeed right now. It is one game, it is one performance. I don't. And this is the thing as well. There's been a lot of revisionism of his time at Manchester United, his performances at Manchester United over the last 24 hours. Like I said this morning, that because he played well last night, that sort of 2.5 years kind of disappears. I don't really understand that. But he's in the best place. He's in the best place for him right now. His value is increasing. Manchester United will need funds this summer. There are clearly players earmarked to be sold in the summer. Jadon Sancho is one of them. As an England fan or supporter, I'd like to see Jadon Sancho playing his best football and maybe get back into the England squad. And I don't think that happens for him at Manchester United. I don't think the circumstances to allow Sancho to succeed can happen at Manchester United. So nothing but the best for him, and hopefully he continues some good form. Manchester United can get some good money. And as far as bringing him back, doesn't look like it's going to happen whilst Erik ten Hag is there, does it? And even if Erik ten Hag is not, for me, still I wouldn't do it, because I just don't. I think for a couple of reasons, I don't think the player wants to come back to Manchester United, and as I said, I don't think the environment's best for him to succeed. And I think Manchester United need to look forwards and not backwards. There's so much to do in the summer. There's so much to do, at a playing level, at a medical level, at a recruitment level, an executive level, that it's just. I don't think Man United have the time, frankly, to revisit things that can be dealt with quite quickly. So yeah, I think it's pretty transparent answer there from Erik ten Hag, saying that, when he says he showed he represents high value for Manchester United, he lays his cards out pretty firmly on the table, doesn't he there? We've got nearly 500 people watching. We're nearly at 70 likes. If you haven't already, click the like button. Be sure to subscribe as well. Bottom right-hand corner, you know what to do. Let's see if we can get those likes up to 150, maybe even 200, something like that. Now, Jason Wilcox, of course, lots of people have been talking about Jason Wilcox, his arrival at Manchester United, the new technical director, effective immediately. That was announced. Gosh, when was that announced? Just before Wembley, wasn't it? So a couple of weeks ago at this point. So he's been at the club for a couple of weeks, had some meetings, some talks with Ten Hag, with players, is overseeing things, auditing things right now. And he was asked about Jason Wilcox, saying that, about Ten Hag having the chance to talk to him. And Ten Hag said, I didn't say I had the chance. We talk every day from last week. In a very short period, we have to build an intense relationship. We're working now to a plan. We had a plan already before he stepped in. And of course, we have to get aligned. It takes time, but we don't have so much time. And this is kind of the thing that I was talking about before, with that relationship between the manager, or I suppose soon to be the head coach of Manchester United, and these new executives that come in Dan Ashworth and Jason Wilcox. Dan Ashworth obviously will be coming in a bit later than Jason Wilcox. Jason Wilcox is already here. But this kind of does marry up with some of the reporting and also with what Ten Hag was saying previously, when Ten Hag was saying that he was still working with John Murtough every day. They had a plan for next season. They were discussing targets. They were discussing the pre-season friendly. They were discussing next season and the future and what have you, because it was business as usual. And I do think it's quite curious that he said, well, we had this plan already before he stepped in. Now that Jason Wilcox has stepped in, maybe Ineos do have a bit of a different plan. And these are the key moments now. These are the key moments to find out, is Jason Wilcox and Ineos, their vision, is it aligned with Erik ten Hag's vision? Are there differences, and can those differences be worked out pretty easily? Are there things that they agree on? Are they things that they disagree on? What are they going to do? And that's why I've always pushed back on when people say in the past, well, Ten Hag said it, he's worked in structures before and, he's happy to work for them. And I'm sure he is. And he has. Of course he has. He's worked in structures similar to this at Ajax. He's had great success with it. But it's not necessarily the structure that's important. It's the alignment. It's the alignment between the people in that structure. You can have a structure. You can have a manager and you can have a director of football or a sporting director, or in this case, a technical director. If you're not working off the same page, it's completely redundant. It doesn't it doesn't work in that case. So now where we're in the situation where they're finding out now. They're finding out. They're having these talks every day. To Ten Hag's point, if they're going to succeed, both of them together, then they have to be on the same page. They have to get aligned. And sometimes those things, to his point, do take time, but they don't have a lot of time. And he realizes in his mind as well, these guys, Ineos, they got itchy trigger fingers. They're looking to make changes across Manchester United. So it's within his best interest to get aligned with these people as much as possible and show them that, yep, I'm on the same page as you. We've got the same ideas. We've got the same vision. Let's go. Because if they are totally aligned, if they're totally on the same page, then most likely he will stay. He will stay. If they're totally aligned and they've got the same ideas, then the chances are, or certainly he increases his chances to stay exponentially. Because as that reports have pointed out, the cost of getting rid of him and his coaching staff, the cost of looking for a replacement, the lack of viable options for a replacement aren't really out there. So if they can all get on the same page, because he's not a bad coach. I never said Erik ten Hag's a bad coach. He's a good coach. You don't become a bad one overnight. If they're on the same page, then most likely he will stay. But Ineos are looking. They're looking. They're seeing. They're assessing everything right now. And these talks are incredibly crucial. Because it's not just you can't just have a technical director and go, right, see, it's worked in the past. Are they on the same page? That's the key thing. Are they on the same page? Do they share this same vision? How different is this plan that Ineos are bringing versus the plan that was in place as well? So that's the key aspect of this. That's the key thing. So we shall see, because now those talks are happening. That assessment period is happening right now, and I'm sure he's absolutely aware of it too. Where are we at in the chat at the moment as well? Astro says, I can't honestly believe he spent years getting to a job the size of United, who have had zero structure, which he knows about, only not to agree to it. It seems nonsensical to me. S. Madison says, I believe even him doesn't know what's happening in the background. What else are people saying here? Savanti says, one good game, and people go nuts for Sancho. For 2+ seasons at Man United under 3 managers, he did very little. I think, yeah, I mean, the point you make there, Astra, about the having no structure at Manchester United, it is remarkable, isn't it? That a club this size, they only put in a football director and technical director a couple of years ago. That's when they did that announcement about John Murtough and Darren Fletcher, and even Darren Fletcher wasn't a technical director, really, was he? He's on the pitch, not doing the same things that Jason Wilcox is going to be doing. So that is somewhat remarkable as well, isn't it? But now's the key time. Now's the key time of having these talks, and these talks are going to be very critical to his future. No doubt about that. And I think the best outcome would be, arguably for stability at Manchester United, is that everyone would be totally aligned and there doesn't have to be all this upheaval and move on. But I'm also of the mindset of if there is a feeling that they can't get on the same page, or there's a feeling that they've got different visions or what have you, then Ineos should be looking at alternatives if that is the case. But now we're in that period about seeing if they can figure each other out, if they can work together. That's the key thing. But I also then still say that I don't think Ineos have come into this blind as well. I think when they were recruiting these people, they would have been asked about Erik ten Hag, their thoughts on him, his style of play, his coaching methods, other issues that have gone on at Manchester United as well. And now they're doing their due diligence to see if they match up with the person, their thoughts, I think, as well. Let's talk about the challenges at Manchester United. Erik ten Hag was asked about the challenges at Manchester United. He said, always a lot of work. It sounds a little bit like it's normal, but when you go into a transfer window, but the injuries are a big impact. We know also we are still below the levels from the expectations Manchester United has, so we have to catch up. And now I'm going into my 5th window. 2 windows quite okay, 2 we missed. We have to make new improvements to the squad, but there is a base of this squad that is very good. And kind of hold that thought about transfers, because as I said, Erik ten Hag really does hit back at the reporting of transfers and a squad overhaul and all that kind of stuff. So hold that thought. We'll circle back to it. Now, Ten Hag was also asked about, obviously now, Manchester United aren't going to be finishing in the top 4. Look, very unlikely they're going to be finishing 5th as well, given the points we are behind Spurs. But finishing in the top 6 or top 7 this season, in terms of European football, saying that Manchester United will need European football next season. He said, quote, of course it's important, but we have 2 opportunities, one in the league and one in the FA Cup final. Of course, that being that if you win the FA Cup, you qualify for the Europa League. There's been some confusion around that. I have seen people saying, oh, we're already in the Europa League because we're in the FA Cup final. That's not the case. That's not the case. You have to win it to get into the FA Cup, to get into the Europa League. It was different a few years ago, but now, you have to win it. And then there's also obviously rules about if someone wins the FA Cup and they're in the Champions League spots, then that spot can get given to someone else or moves down in the league. But yes, Erik ten Hag is right in the sense of we do have 2 opportunities to qualify for the Europa League. Of course, one being in the league, finishing in those spots in either 5th or 6th. And also if we win the FA Cup, we'd qualify for the Europa League in addition to that too. Now, as far as being in the Europa League or the Europa Conference League next season, Erik ten Hag was asked about what effect that will have on Manchester United. He said, definitely it will have an impact on the budget, but I'm sure Manchester United is a very attractive team and a club to play for. Many players will be very happy to play for Manchester United, I'm sure. Now, as far as not being in the Champions League, is that going to affect recruitment plans? As he says, of course it will. Of course, not being in the Champions League will affect recruitment plans. Obviously, one being you'll have less money to spend because you don't get that Champions League revenue that you would have. And in addition to that, there will be some players that will be like, oh, They're not in the Champions League. Manchester United are in a bit of a transitional phase right now. Do I want to take the risk? And maybe, yes, I won't be playing in the Champions League next season, but when will they get back into the Champions League? I don't know. So maybe I'll want to go to a team that's playing in the Champions League instead. It's not the end of the world of attracting players as well. Teams have managed to be successful and recruit players that, without being in the Champions League, look at Liverpool this season. They replaced their entire midfield without being in the Champions League. And you would probably think, it depends on the player, but Manchester United would still fancy themselves to recruit effectively without being in the Champions League, you would hope. But what the problem in the past, when we haven't been in the Champions League, to compensate that, what do? We throw money at it. We go, right, we know we're not in the Champions League this season, so instead of you going to a Champions League team, how about we just give you loads of money? How about we give you just lots of cash, and that will change your mind. And United can't do that this year. They can't, and that's going to be the situation with Ineos. Is still recruit effectively. Don't just overspend in terms of everything, in terms of transfer budget and in wage budget, because you're trying to compensate for not being in the Champions League. And also, you've got to foster that feeling, don't you? You've got to foster that feeling that something big's happening at Manchester United. You've got to foster that feeling that Manchester United have momentum. If Manchester United make an impressive signing, or they have an impressive window, or they make changes that open people's eyes within football and go, I tell you what, actually, Manchester United are moving seriously. And that doesn't necessarily just mean transfers. That's with some of the changes that have already been made. Omar Barada's got a very good reputation in football. They go, I tell you what, they got Richard Arnold. Who's Richard Arnold? They got him out and they brought in Omar Barada in. He was at Barcelona and Manchester City. That's not bad going. They got Jason Wilcox in. He got a pretty good reputation, actually. Did a great job at City's academy. Yeah, that's pretty good. That's not bad going. If they get Dan Ashworth in, they could go, hey, he's got a good reputation in football. That's, again, how you build momentum. You generate this feeling, this kind of, wow, okay, United are serious now. I know they're not in the Champions League next season, but they really mean business. Maybe they might be coming back. You generate that kind of momentum. You generate that kind of feeling. And then also, you're smart with your recruitment. You go after people that you can develop into being world-class players, as Sir Jim Ratcliffe said. You don't go after Jude Bellingham or Kylian Mbappe now. Instead, you go after who you think is going to be the next one, or you think in 2 or 3 years' time is going to be the next one. You develop them, and you're smarter in the you're smarter in the window as well. So, of course, not being in the Champions League is going to have an impact on that, but it's not an excuse not to have a good transfer window, is it? It's not an excuse not to be effective in the transfer window. And hopefully, there's going to be players leaving that's hopefully going to provide the funds maybe that we will be missing out on from the Champions League too. Now, this is where Erik ten Hag really hit back at the media, and it's based upon. It's a combination of a lot of things, really. It's based on, one, the recent reports that there's going to be a big overhaul of the squad in the summer, which there is to an extent going to be. And obviously the reporting that essentially everyone's up for sale. Everyone's got a price apart from key certain players and younger players. But also Erik ten Hag's hitting back here on just the general coverage, shall we say, of Manchester United in transfer window. So as I said, he was asked about these reports of another squad overhaul and everybody having a price and things of that nature. And Erik ten Hag said, quote, "We are not going to sell the main part of the squad. It's a joke. As long as I've worked every summer, every window, 200 players getting interest from Manchester United. We did some research, and also every summer we sell all of the players in our squad, which you make all the headlines, and that takes responsibility how you make such a headline. Find a good source if there is some truth in it." And I tell you what, you can't argue. You cannot argue with that. And I'm glad he keeps doing this in this press conferences, because sometimes in more recent months or during his tenure, he's played too nicely with the media, frankly. And he's right. As someone that has lived it the last few years, the coverage of Manchester United in transfer windows is ridiculous, isn't it? It is. I mean, people do it. I think it might have been United People's TV. Shout out to them. I think one summer, it might have been last summer or the summer before, they had like a whiteboard They had a whiteboard, and they literally, every time a player got linked, they just write it down. And it's filled up by the end of the summer, isn't it? It's crazy. It is nuts. And that's why even now, and like, you see this throughout the season, or like hear it in like February or something like that. And it's like Manchester United are going to be looking at this player in the summer. Because you still see it now. Man United are going to be looking at this player in the summer, that player in the summer. And it's all bollocks, isn't it? It's all bullshit. It's all rubbish. Because we sign every summer. How many players do we sign? Like what, 4 or 5? Something like that? 4 or 5. And the links to every player under the sun. And then what it does do with the player links is when another club buys that player, we get angry. We get angry that we haven't. Man United, well, this player's gone to this club. Why didn't we buy him? And then you go, maybe because we were never going to buy him in the first place, because they just use Manchester United for either clicks, or they use Manchester United to speed up their transfer process. So their agents put out with the media, Man United's interested. And then the people they are actually negotiating with go, oh my God, my goodness me, we've definitely got to sign him then. And it is a joke. That part of the whole media coverage of Manchester United, in terms of the people we get linked with, is nonsense. Now, as far as we're not going to sell the main part of the squad, it depends what you define as the main part of the squad, isn't it? Really, there are going to be a lot of players leaving this summer. Clearly, I mean, we've got a lot of contracts coming up this summer. We've got a lot of people with a year left on their contract this summer, so there are still going to be a lot of people leaving. But as we have said, this is the key thing too. As we have said, that's really just going to be trimming the fat. If your thought process is, which look, I agree with parts of it, that there are certain sort of key fundamental players that Manchester United will never win the Premier League or win the Champions League with these players, they're not going to get touched this summer. They're not going to get sold this summer. We know that. We know that there are going to be players that people don't like that are going to be here. It's about managing your expectations when it comes to that. If you're not a fan of, let's say, Marcus Rashford, and these reports have been coming out this week about Marcus Rashford leaving, we all know, though, the chances are very, very, very high that Marcus Rashford is going to be here next summer. He signed a new contract, a year ago. He's got 4 years left of it. If you're not a fan of Bruno Fernandes and you think he should go, I know he came out and was like, I'll think about my future after the Euros and all that kind of stuff. But let's face it, he's got to be here next summer. We know that. So those sort of key players, those sort of more fundamental players that do play very often and do get criticised, they're not going anywhere anytime soon. We know that. If they were ever going to go, it's not going to be next summer. It might be the summer after or the summer after that. That's going to take time. We know this summer there's going to be a lot of players leaving, but this, like I said, it's just going to really be sort of trimming the fat. So it's about managing expectations, really. I think if you think that Man United are gonna get rid of, a Bruno or a Rashford this summer, I'd still be very surprised. It'd be a shock. It'd be a big shock, but that's just not going to happen, is it? That's not this summer anyway. There's too much going on with all of these players that are going to be leaving. So yeah, and then this is where you do sympathise with Erik ten Hag, because you can't win in this situation. He tells the truth there and says, well, we're not going to sell the main part of our squad this summer, clearly. Then we'll be like, this is why Manchester United are never going to change. It's never going to happen overnight. It's just... when I'm talking about recently, rip it up, whole reset, one of the pushbacks when I say that is people go, oh, so you think we're going to sell all these players immediately and get rid of blah, 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 blah. Of course not. Of course not. It has to be strategic demolition, doesn't it? You have to take it down bit by bit by bit. There has to be a plan. So, that part is going to take time. But there are going to be players leaving. There are going to be significant players leaving in the summer, big players. But those sort of key players, that's going to take some time. We can't get rid of everyone at once. we can't. Particularly with some of the contracts that we've got them on as well. That is going to have to take some time. But as far as the players getting linked with Man United, it's ridiculous. It is crazy, and it'll be the same this summer because it always is. I mean, how often have we seen the headline of Manchester United target signs with this, or Manchester United linked player signs with this, and you go, that's got nothing to do with Manchester United. That's got nothing to do with us. So yeah, I think you do have to be realistic in that regard. There's going to be a lot of people leaving in the summer, but you can't get rid of everyone in one transfer window. It's just that is not feasible. You have to manage your expectations with that. In the same way that we're saying that the expectation for Ten Hag, or if there was going to be a new manager, wouldn't be to win the Premier League next season or win the Champions League. We're not even going to be in it, but win the Premier League next season. It's also not realistic to think that Manchester United are going to get rid of everyone in one transfer window. That's just not the case. And as far as him hitting back at the media, as I mentioned when he did it and banned the people before, I'm all for it because they're just ridiculous with some of the things that they write and how unfair that they can be. So yeah, I think he was right to have a go back there, certainly. We've got 750 people watching, which is great. If you haven't already, click the like button. Let's see if we can get it up to 200 likes. And be sure to subscribe as well whilst you're at it. There's less than 70 to go until 200 likes. So be sure to click that like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner as well. And finally, a bit of an update on Marcus Rashford. As for his injury, he was asked about Rashford's status. Ten Hag said, I can't tell. So it was last week after Coventry. His issue hasn't healed thus far or so far. So Rashford is going to be a doubt for the game on Monday, it looks like. I mean, I suppose this kind of gets into kind of preview territory here. But as far as the team being the people that can be available for that game, you'd probably go Onana in goal. Fullbacks is going to be as is. We haven't got really any update on Luke Shaw or Terrell Malacia. Centre backs, Maguire and maybe Johnny Evans could be back by that point. And then if that's the case, then maybe it's Kobe and Casemiro. If not, could be Kobe and Eriksen again, but that worries me. Going up against Eze and those gaps there, that would be concerning. In front of them, I still say Bruno will play, even though Bruno's a doubt. He just doesn't miss football matches. So I think Bruno in the 10. It'll be Garnacho on the left. I'd like to see Ahmad get a start. Once, at the same vein though, that it was against Burnley when I said I'd like to see him get a start, but I'm not going to be surprised when Anthony does start. I say the same for that, considering he did score against Burnley as well. Ten Hag will keep him in the side, and then Rasmus Højlund up front. I suppose you could maybe say Mason Mount could possibly start if Bruno's a doubt. Does Mason Mount get a go basically in the 10? Which I guess that's possible. You're at this stage of the season, not really a lot to play for in the league at this point. You just got to make sure, I suppose, you pick up points that you don't drop out of those European spaces. But if Bruno's got a bit of a knock and he's not 100%, and you've got the FA Cup final on the horizon in a few weeks' time, maybe you do give Mason Mount a start in the 10 instead of Bruno Fernandes. See what happens then. Why not? He was back for the last game, wasn't he, Mason Mount? Maybe he can get a run of games in the 10. He played again, ironically enough, when we played Crystal Palace in the Carabao Cup at Old Trafford, because we played Palace back-to-back, didn't we? When we played them in the Carabao Cup against Palace's sort of second-string team and one of our better performances this season, Bruno wasn't playing that day, was he? And Mason Mount did play. And everyone said, Mason Mount was great that day. So maybe Mason Mount will get a start. We shall see. But there you go. What are people saying in the chat here at the moment as well? Tywin says, of course he says the rest of the season to go, managers lie. Of course he says with the rest of the season to go, managers lie. Not sure about that. Mahad says, the manager himself doesn't want to clear out, so why will these Erik ten Hag in and still want him to stay next season when we know the same shit will repeat themselves with the Deadwoods here? It's not even that. I think the sort of freak out over that, saying that we're not going to sell the majority, we're not going to sell a lot of our squad. I don't think it's... I think we need to kind of not freak out over that one because players are still going to be leaving. He's hardly going to come out in a press conference and be like, I'm going to get rid of the whole team. And at the same time, there are going to be players leaving. There's going to be quite a few players leaving. Now, when he says the key parts of the squad, I think he means like, your Brunos or your Rashfords or those kind of players. But the expectation was that they weren't going to be leaving anyway. So has he said anything new there? Has he said anything that we didn't already know? So if no, then why are we freaking out over it? Because that's not new information, is it? I remember we did a show, Flex and myself, listing all of those players that were probably going to leave in the summer. With players coming to the end of their contract or with a year left on their contract, there's still like 10, 15 players that are probably going to be off the wage books in the summer. So we can't get rid of everyone immediately. And that's not justifying it. That's just living in the reality there. What's he going to say? Yeah. That that report where he said everyone's got a price, he's right. And that report probably still is accurate. Everyone still does have a price. So those players that they're getting rid of in the summer that have either out of contract or have a year left, if a bid did come in for a Marcus Rashford that was like £75 million and Rashford said, I want to leave, then Man United would accept it. They would. But as all those reports said this week, that their intention isn't to get rid of him, but they'll see what happens. It's not freak out worthy. Erik ten Hag has not come out at his press conference and been like, we're not getting rid of everyone. No one is leaving. We're giving everyone new contracts. They're all staying. And they should all be staying. There's nothing wrong with Manchester United. With everyone's, that's not the case. It's a press conference, as we say. What we definitely, if we've learned anything from this season, it's that we should not live and die by what is said in press conferences or in the media, because a lot of it's just, it's just lip service, isn't it? A lot of it. Some things you can say, some things you can't say. That's it. So. Yeah, that's the latest. That's the update from Erik ten Hag at Carrington for the presser. Be sure to smash the like on the like button, guys. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. What's on tap, of course, What the Devil coming out later today, 6 p.m. Tomorrow we'll have the morning show, and then we'll have the Trinite, powered by Dan Gore, I believe, episode 14. I think it is. Saturday, we'll have the price list. Speaking of players leaving, the price list. The Manchester United price list with Fleck and KG going through some player valuations. Will be a lot of fun to watch. That's going to be out on Saturday. And then Sunday, we'll have a match preview and the full view as well. So there's so much on the horizon. Then Monday, of course, it's match day. It's match day as well. So you can tune in. The kickoff's 8 o'clock. So as always, we'll be live 2 hours before, 6 p.m. I'll be live for the pre-match. And then I'll be handing over to UVHQ 30 minutes before kickoff. So at 7:30, it'll be Flex, KG. The whole panel of people will be there as well. So it'll be a full match day experience. Anyway, guys, have a great Thursday. And I'll speak to you again very, very soon. I'm out there. Peace.